Hey all, Board Gamer Answer, where you'll find everything solo tabletop gaming and more. Here's Anachrony. From a solo perspective, please always keep that in mind. I'm going to go over the nuts and bolts of it and see on the other side, and we'll see what I think. Here we are, Anachrony. So this is a big, beautiful beast of a game. We got the main board right here. We got a player board right here, kind of here, and then up here is just another part of that, extension of that. We got our mechs here. We've got over here, let's just ignore this for now. This is just, this is all the solo stuff. And then right here across, we got a timeline. This basically keeps track of the round that you're in. And over here, we got the goodies. We got, this is what helps us know what kind of buildings are available to build. And there's 4 different types. And this, each round, you kind of renew the resources available and the workers available. And then over here we've got the resources as well as victory points and little power cores and water. That's a main resource here in this game, because the game is essentially about, just very general, it's actually a little complicated to understand, so I probably got it wrong. But anyway, a meteor hits the Earth some time ago and just devastates it and wipes out most of humanity. Of course, there's a few that survive, and those few that survive create 4 paths. So you can think of them, they're factions or races or whatever. This one right here is the Path of Harmony. And the paths all have, there's a B side, and then there's an A side. On the A side, on the other side of this big board and that board, sort of a generic, everybody's the same kind of thing. But the B side of each path is allows for some asymmetry, and so you've got special things that you're good at, which is always a cool thing in a game. And what you're trying to do is your path is trying to gain the most victory points by the end of the game and win. And the whole thing that you're trying to do is the meteor that struck the Earth brought with it neutronium. This guy right there, cute little purple resource. Neutronium, as it turns out, long story short, allows us to discover time travel. So with that discovery, we find out that in our future, and this is this timeline I was telling you, which kind of keeps track of what round you were in, and also keeps track of how far you're getting and how close you're getting to another devastating impact, which we find out from our future selves is coming. So the whole point of the game is to use these rounds to prepare our path to be ready for when the meteor strikes, and then all hell breaks loose and things happen, and then there's only up to 3 more rounds left, and whoever has the most victory points at the end of that wins. And once that meteor strikes, there is a little thing here that you flip over, and it becomes a new action that you can take, an evacuation action, which hopefully you've been spending all your time building up your path to take this evacuation action, which is represented right here, and it basically tells you what you need to evacuate your people, and you're going to score a bunch of victory points for it if you do it right. And after that, the board starts shutting down because the meteor just starts devastating things. You get to kind of take some last few actions, and then you're done. And so this very generally is a worker placement game, but evolved. A lot of games now are becoming more evolved, not just the standard, I have a piece, I put it on, it blocks everybody else from taking it, and I can take an action to grab wood, or to grab water, or to build something. So this has all that in it, but the evolved part is we've got different types of workers: chemist, engineer, administrator, and then a genius, which basically can be used as any of these 3 guys. And then up on here, the iconography on this game is fantastic. It looks a mess. I mean, don't get me wrong. When you don't know what any of these symbols means, it looks insane. Beautiful, but insane. Beautiful insanity. But eventually you start with, okay, that's 1 neutronium, that's 2 uranium, that's 1 water. So to build a building here, you'll notice on the buildings, actually, it's kind of cool. They don't have any building costs on the building. It just tells you what you can do when you get it. But to build this building here, boop, I just have to pay those resources, and I can put that right there. So you've got that kind of iconography, and then out here, this is just a mess of it as well. Which once you get it down, it really it's so well done. But I guess what I was trying to allude to was the fact that you know, here, this is an administrative action, and it allows you to recruit new workers. So you take this action, and then, but if you're playing an administrator, if you use an administrator to take this action, you can take anybody you want. If you use an engineer, your engineers just aren't smart enough to impress the geniuses. So apparently you can't recruit a genius if you take this action as an engineer. And if you're a chemist, and you try to take this action, you just can't. You know, chemists, they're just not known for their social skills. So it is futile to try to have a chemist come here. Oh, come on, guys, we're only going to die. They don't have what it takes to convince people to join your cause. So, but and then over here, however, on a research action, it's all about using a chemist, of course. And engineers and administrators have no chance at doing research, right? So, and then over here, this is the build action. A chemist can do it, but an engineer can do it better for -1 resource. Administrators don't build stuff. They talk people into joining causes. So, and then over here, you got anybody can pretty much take this action, but engineers, if they take it, they don't become exhausted. See, when you use your workers, most of them will become exhausted, and you have to refresh them with water, essentially. Water's a tough resource out here in the dusty wilds. And so water is a big resource along with these things, which all represent their various resource types. And then over here, you got more actions. So another way that this is an evolved worker placement game is that you have to take these awesome mechs, which are awesome. You just take your workers here. These are my awake workers. That's what that means. These are my sleepy workers. Those are the ones that you put over here after they've done some stuff. And then they get tired, and then you have to take an action, which is all this stuff, and you have to give them some water. And then you can shift all your tired guys over to awake guys, and you can use your awake guys to take actions. Or, you know, you can just take, you can also, at the expense of morale, which is represented by this token, I can just take in, you get no water, and you just wake everybody up and throw them over and get to work. But your morale goes down, and it costs you victory points. So, anyway, I am digressing because there's just so much going on here. But back to this. This is the other part. If you want to take an action on your board, you don't need mech suits because you're in the safety of your path and its city that you've hopefully built up. And let's say, you know, you've got this building here. Well, to take this action, you just got to take a worker and you put them right on there, and then you do its stuff. And this is saying, for instance, you put a worker on there, any worker, but it costs you have to spend a gold, but then you get 6 water and 1 victory point. And at the end of the game, this is going to be worth a victory point. So, and then over here it's saying, remember how it's saying most workers are tired after they take an action? Well, apparently it's just very refreshing to go and get water, and you just get to, after you're done with the round, instead of putting your guy over in the tired section, he goes right back into the I can work again section. So that's, again, where all the, why do I want to struggle saying that word? Iconography comes into play. So, but back to the mechs. So the mechs, you get to take these guys, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to go out into the capital. Got to trudge across the land, and you got to do it in these mechs. And you slot your guys in the mechs, which is awesome. I don't know. I'm nerding out over here. Anyway, so this, and you put your guy there, and then you, of course, you block the space. Now other people can't take that space, and if someone else wants to take the space now and take this administrative action, for instance, they'd have to spend a water just to do it. And so you got to come out and you have to manage your mechs. So that's another part of the evolved worker placement process, is you have to manage mechs by powering them up with power cells, or there's other ways too that you can power them up, and so that you can start taking those actions out here. And then once you have built using the build action and you've built some buildings and those are on your board at home, well, then you don't need the mechs to take those actions there, but it takes a little while before you get to that point. So, whew. Now, this here timeline keeps track of all sorts of good stuff. Timeline is basically the round that you're in, and because there's the whole idea of time travel, there's this awesome lending mechanism or borrowing mechanism in this game, and that is you represented by, okay, you know what I really need, I don't have, and I have no way to get it, but I really need some uranium. You put that on there, you instantly, poof, uranium just shows up on your board. Bong! And, however, of course, whenever you borrow something, you're borrowing from your future self now. So you're borrowing from out here. when as you trudge along the timeline, you know you have to pay yourself back. And each time you go, each round you go and don't pay yourself back, you start gaining paradoxes. And then you start tearing rifts in time and space as you create more paradoxes, because that's the interest, if you will. That's the penalty you're paying for not paying yourself back. And if you create too many paradoxes, you finally create, reaching up top, anomalies. These are bad. These are worth -3 victory points. And you basically have to spend a bunch of resources in water and then sacrifice. That means you use a worker here, and that worker goes bye-bye, trying to correct that anomaly. If you don't, it's just worth -3 victory points. So that's just an awesome way. This game takes, you know, borrowing, like, oh, I need to borrow $10 and from the bank, and then you have to pay interest each turn that goes around. You don't pay, you gotta pay $1 in interest, and if at the end of the game you haven't paid off, then it counts big time against you. Well, here you borrow from your future self, and then you have to go back in time to pay yourself back. And if you don't, you create paradoxes and anomalies, which is way cooler thematically than paying a couple pennies in interest or whatever. I love it. Anyway, moving on. So the other stuff we got going on here is, above all these, you'll see these super projects. These are awesome buildings, basically, that just take a lot more resources and then research. That's what these little tokens here, when you take a research action here, you get to roll these die, and you're going to get a certain type of research and a shape that'll represent a research, and then you'll grab it out of this bag, and that's what you need. You need research to be able to create some of these super projects, which are just awesome things they allow you to do, and they're worth lots of points at the end of the game. Those get revealed as you march through time, and then eventually, again, you hit this, and once this happens, then these spaces take on a little. You can only take like each action one more time, each space one more time, and once all those spaces have been taken up, then the game's over. Or if that doesn't happen before the next 3 rounds occur, at the end of that last or 7th round, if you will, then you score your points too. Now what we have here is the Chronobot. So this is when you're playing solo. This is my thing, of course. So, and it looks, again, just like insanity. However, it's very straightforward. All that stuff that I was just describing that we're all doing as far as taking the actions, the Chronobot is well represented in that there's these little chits. It's one of the most well done solo variants, really, I've ever experienced. You roll the die, and then you'll find the chit that represents. This is saying it's going to take a build, this type of building action, then you slide that arrow over. And then you'd go up and, sorry, it looks like I already left that down. You'd go up and you'd build that type of building, and the one with the most victory points, of course, and then you'd start stacking those up here. And as the Chronobot just keeps rolling, and depending on, so if it rolled a 4, it would have a build a water action. It'd build that, and then you'd slide that shit over. And then it's each shit here has kind of a revolving area it goes around. So 2 through 5 kind of revolves in this area. The 1 just kind of goes zoop and then loops and loops, and the 6 sort of goes back and forth, back and forth. And what the Chronobot's basically trying to do is collect sets of resources by taking, you know, this action, this resource collection action, and then once it does, it's going to get 5 victory points, and it'll try again to create another set. It's trying to create sets of workers, and it gets victory points for that. And also it's blocking spaces out there. It'll take its own mechs, and it'll block spaces out there so that you can't take actions. And then it'll score based on, you know, the actions on these mean nothing. You know, this one's saying you put a guy on there and you get 7 water, but then that guy dies. So I don't know, maybe drowned, but he got a lot of water doing it. But these actions mean nothing for the Chronobot. Chronobot's just interested in the points that it'll give him and the points it gets for collecting sets of stuff. It also gets points for, you know, it'll get anomalies as well, and kind of represents everything that you would do, but in a simplistic way. And you try to beat the Chronobot. That's the solo game, is you're going to be taking turns back and forth, back and forth. So that's the gist of it. There you have it, Anachrony. This game kind of lights me up every time I start playing it or taking it out or thinking about it. Because well, one thing too, the exosuits that you saw there, the mechs I call them, they are with an expansion only. They don't come with the base game. The base game comes in this monstrous box. And if you do get the expansion for this, which is only one that I'm really aware of right now, it comes with the exosuits and a couple other modules and how to play. It all fits in that box. And so it's extremely tidy. You can just set off the expansion box somewhere to gaze at fondly every now and again, but you can put it all in that huge box. Everything fits, and it fits perfectly. So back to the game. Thematically, I love the whole time travel thing. It's I've talked with people that sort of know about that in theory, and I don't even understand what they're talking about. But the way it is incorporated in this game, and it makes sense, makes me feel kind of smart. I like that. And also the mechanism I mentioned for lending, the way they incorporate the whole idea of time travel, and you borrow from your future self, and then you've got the longer you take to return those items to your past self, you start messing with the fabric of reality and start creating anomalies and paradoxes. It's just, it just takes a mundane mechanism and makes it cool. And so that's just one of the things that this theme does, but it's just, it permeates throughout the whole game. And the mechanics they all work together in sync. You got, standard worker placement, but not so standard. And in that are a lot of moving parts, as you saw. And all the iconography is so well done. There's a lot of games where it's not, where the symbols don't really make sense. And this one, it makes sense so quickly, before I'm done buzzing through the rulebook so I can play again, because it's, it's an involved game, but I'm already, I'm like, okay, I just want to, I remember, I just want to play. And that is testament to the iconography in that it looks like what it should mean. There's a lot of games where just the symbols don't match up with what you'd think they'd mean. So kudos to that on this game. From a variability standpoint, that, the game is such a complete feeling game, but the solo variant, the official solo variant anyway, only works with the base game. So, and so that's a limiting, from my standpoint. Because there's a module that the base game comes with called Doomsday module, and you have to go on Board Game Geek and find a fan-made variant to use it from a solo standpoint, to use it with a Chronobot. The expansion, the official expansion that comes separately, comes with a way that you can power up your exosuits, and you go off into the outback, and not just to the capital now with in your suits, but you go out on adventures and you gather up stuff that way, and it's awesome, and then you want to use it, and there's no official variant for it to incorporate it with the solo. So that's kind of lame. However, you can go, again, Board Game Geek, and you can find people who really should be picked up by, designers. These guys are putting together, and a lot of times it's the same, you'll see the same users putting together these variants, and they're great. Are they balanced? Are they play tested? I no, but they let you have your cake and eat it too, so that you can just throw everything in there that you've paid for. And another side note about this game, the value is tremendous. The base game, that monstrous box I just showed you, I think retail US was $65. Phenomenal value for all the stuff in that box. It's not like all that stuff from the base game takes up that whole box. But maybe it was done with the future in mind, that when the expansion comes out, that they wanted to have room in that box to be able to put all the exosuits, because for each path you get a different set, a different looking exosuit. And so there's 30 miniatures, and the expansion was $50, $50 US, I want to say. So total of $115. It sounds like a lot, but you get a lot. I have spent $115 on games where you get chintzy, role player, I'm looking at you. You can probably look for a bargain in all this, but I tend to like to support my friendly local game store. And if I see a game, I want to pick it up. And I buy a lot of games, so I'm always looking at the value as far as components and the feel of the gameplay. So this one has it all. You get all the components, and they're quality components, and the game is awesome. Length of play, you've got a doozy. You know, it's for when you set up, play, and take down, especially the first time after you've never played before, or as you're learning. I imagine probably a couple hours. But then, you know, once it's out on the table, let's say, and you've played it a few times, you can play in an hour, and that's awesome. You know, the setup and takedown adds to that rather considerably, but you know, especially if you play the same path over and over again, you can just, yeah, an hour, just choop, choop, because the length of play also, it varies because you go through those first 4 rounds, if you will, the meteor hits, and then you've got 5 to 7 rounds left. Well, sometimes, you know, it ends. Sometimes you want it to end in the 5th round. You want to do the things, take up the actions that stop the game, because you don't want the Chronobot rolling, especially if the Chronobot's rolling sixes after the meteor hits are damaging, because now that little token on the bottom there goes from, you know, getting water to getting a super project, and those super projects are worth lots of points, and it can crush you pretty quickly. So sometimes you want to end quick, and so the game can be over, you know, again in 5 to 7 rounds, and each round adds considerably. And so yeah, after that meteor hits, you want to go, you want to get your points, you do your evacuation, and sometimes end the game. The rulebook is fantastic. The rulebook, once you go through it, you know, you feel like you've got it, because now you can use all the symbols, it all makes sense. And then at the back of the book, there's just an appendix that goes over everything, like just everything. And I find myself referring to that quite a bit. And it's easy to just go to and like, okay, what does this mean? What is the evacuation? What is that? What do I have to do the evacuation for this path? What do I have to, you know, what does this super project mean? And again, on the back of the rule book, it's got all the very well done rule book, extremely well done. It does have a FAQ as well, but it's not, you know, a huge one. Considering all the moving parts, that's impressive that it's not a huge FAQ. Doesn't need it. So solo parameters are great. I love the Chronobot. I love the Chronobot. I think it's one of the most well-made, well-designed solo experiences I've ever had in managing it. It's a roll of a D6. And then what that D6 does, I mean, it's incredible what this one, that's a standard die roll, and how it affects and the Chronobot responds to each roll, and the little chits that move around the board. So now, you know, a 4 means something different the next time you roll it. So it's just well designed, and it has the Chronobot getting in your way, and it has you adjusting your strategy because you don't want it to create sets of resources or sets of workers. And so sometimes you're maybe doing something you wouldn't really want to do just because you don't want it to get something, which is very much, you know, like you're playing another player. Extremely well done solo version here. Again, my only complaint is that it's officially only for the base game. There's just so much of this game, and officially it's like, nope, just the base stuff. Anyway, scoring's great because it's all in one tidy little scoring pad, and it's win or lose. And you score points, the Chronobot scores points, did you win or lose? And it has to do with the buildings you've made and how well you evacuated and stuff like that. Very straightforward, win or lose, not like a beat your own high score thing. Fantastic game. I love it through and through. One thing I would ask, if you'd care to, comment on the bottom, a mundane mechanic that, like a borrowing mechanism, like I need money, I'm gonna borrow it from the bank. Now I have to pay interest. Each turn I don't pay interest, I gotta pay more interest. If I don't pay off this loan by the end of the game, I lose all these points. But here, as I mentioned with the whole time travel thing, and thematically it takes a rather boring, you know, normal mechanic and makes it into something wonderful. Any game out there like that? Because I'm really intrigued by that feeling, how it just made it alive. Until next time, though, I'm boardgamerants. That was Anachrony. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later. I'm out. So, what not to like? I don't know. This game, the theme is dripping with theminess. I've always been a little intrigued by the whole idea of time travel and stuff like that. I still don't quite get how it's anyway. This apocalyptic setting, this meteor brings in the stuff. What's not to like? This is a good one.